Good morning. Today, with ringing our peace bowl, we affirm our collective hope for peace within ourselves, within our community, and the world. We acknowledge that these lands that we love are the historical lands of the Yavapai people. And now let us listen to some gathering music by Lena. I'm sorry I didn't announce the name of that song if you don't have order of service in front of you. It was called "'Twas in the Moon of Winter Time," and I hope that's how you were all feeling, and there is a full moon tonight, so it was a perfect, for me, an imagery of the moon. So welcome everybody. It's a good day to be here together in this warm community on a day where the cold is creeping inside our coats. And hello to everybody on Zoom. We welcome you all here to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Suki Jones, your worship associate this morning. It's so good to see a lot of familiar faces, and there might be a few new ones, I'm not sure. However, if you're comfortable and you're new and this is your first visit, we invite you to stand. And Reverend Roger here is going to come around with a microphone to encourage you to introduce yourself and let us know where you're from.
You don't want to stand, you don't have to. We won't know who you are then. if you've been gone a long time and you've just come back from Alaska, you can tell us that.
Hello, I'm Ed Bostrom. I know a lot of you guys. Been here forever. Hi, everybody. Yeah. So we're just back. My dear wife won't be coming back for a while. She's involved in all kinds of ceremonies that they have every year, the Eskimo ceremonies there. So she'll be back later on. Could be. Oh, the microphone. Everybody heard me, all right?
Testing. It is working if you hold it right next to your teeth. Yeah. Anyone else? Well, welcome to everybody. It's great to have you here. And Merry Christmas as we approach that holiday. And Happy Hanukkah and Happy Kwanzaa, just about 10 days away.
So yes, welcome to you all, and don't forget coffee and goodies across the way and some good conversation after the service. In our ministry, in our work here at Granite Peak, we're guided by this, our mission statement. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. It takes a covey of congregants to make sure our Sunday mornings run smoothly. We especially thank those who are a regular part of our morning team: Lena Huben, Karen Denny, Brian Willison, Martin Bramhall, and Chris Hawthorne. Thank you all, as well as all of our other Sunday morning volunteers. Now would be a good time to make sure your phones are in worship mode. It's hard not to notice that this time of year is special. Winter solstice, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. So I hope you can make time in your busy schedules for 2 upcoming services that honor this season. We celebrate nature's pattern, honoring the dark and the return of the light at our annual very moving winter solstice celebration next Saturday at 7 p.m. And then Roger will continue that theme at a carol-filled Christmas Eve service for all ages. Hope you all have that on your schedules. I also want to announce a very important meeting after the service. We'll be having what we call the community chats, and you all need to be here. This will be at 11:30 after you've had time to get coffee, but we will be presenting, the project team will be presenting the plans for raising the roof. And so you'll get to see the drawings and hear exactly what the timeline might be. And so you really want to be here for that. There's lots of other things going on in this congregation. We're always busy. So more information is on our website at prescottuu.org. And there's a newsletter and a monthly newsletter, and you can get copies of those out in the foyer. And let's see, I need to let you know that Sandra Palacios, our faith development coordinator, is across the street with the kids, the children, and doing one of her usual fabulous lessons. We begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice. Our chalice lighter this morning is Dixie King. We light this chalice here in the darkness of winter as we wait. This temporary space is one filled with prayers to be answered, love to be given and received, miracles to be witnessed. May this light guide us until the light of the sun returns again. For those present in the sanctuary, please stand in body or spirit and sing our opening hymn. One you'll be familiar with, but it's in the gray hymnal, 235, Deck the Halls. Oh, you're the song leaders this morning. Thank you. Yes.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Toward the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, la 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 la. Fill me in merry measure, la 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 la. Till the day of Yuletide treasures, la 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 la. Fast away the old year passes, la 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 la. Hail the new ye lads and lasses, la 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 la. Let me have you all together, la 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 la. Heedless of the wind and weather, la 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 la.
Let's say together our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation, and the quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together.
As we prepare to take the offering this morning, let us remember that this time is as much a ritual as singing together, lighting our chalice, or reciting our covenant. It's a time to recommit to this place and to each other. It's a reminder of that form of love that we call generosity. It's how we show that we believe it is important to worship together, to help our community, and to say yes to the values of our faith. And these values call on us to give back to the greater community through our seeds of support. This month's recipient is Prescott Area Shelter Services. Please read about them in your order of service. And to contribute online, visit our website at prescottuu.org. Please enjoy our offertory music. The Holly and the Ivy. Acknowledge the generosity of spirit expressed through this offering. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be. Ours is a spiritual community where we find, excuse me, where we find and forge connection. We trust in the strength of our mutual support, knowing how it has sustained us. We are not alone in times of grief and pain. During this time of meditation and music, take a few minutes to silently acknowledge the joys and concerns of your heart and mind. And if there is an event which moves you to joy or sorrow, hope or gratitude, I invite you to come forward silently and drop a pebble into our communal water as an affirmation of our connection to one another. May our joys and concerns surrounded by the healing communal water of our beloved community be acknowledged here today. So may it be. Please join in singing Spirit of Life.
Check, check.
You guys have difficulty multitasking. I don't know. Can you hear me without this?
Check.
I think we got it. Next to your teeth. Okay.
Right there.
Shout it out.
Right there.
I
Oh,
want to hear you.
okay.
Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy without, and he could hear the people in the court outside go wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts and stamping their feet upon the pavement stones to warm them. The city clocks had only just gone 3, but it was quite dark already. It had not been light all day, and candles were flaring in the windows of the neighboring offices like ruddy smears upon the palpable brown air. The fog came pouring in at every chink and keyhole, and was so dense without that although the court was of the narrowest, the houses opposite were mere phantoms. To see the dingy cloud come drooping down, obscuring everything, one might have thought that nature lived hard by and was brewing on a large scale. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open, that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who, in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room. And so surely as the clerk came in with the shovel, the master predicted that it would be necessary for them to part. Wherefore the clerk put on his white comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which effect, not being a man of strong imagination, he failed.
Merry Christmas to you, Uncle. Merry Christmas, Uncle. God save you.
Cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's niece, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first emanation that he had his approach, that she had her approach.
Ah, humbug.
Christmas a humbug, Uncle? You don't mean that, I'm sure.
I do.
Merry
Christmas. Right. You have to be merry. What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough.
Come then. What
Right, have you
reason to be dismal? What
reason have you?
reason to be morose? You're rich enough.
Bah, humbug.
Don't be
Cross, Uncle.
What else can I be? When I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money, a time for finding yourself a year older, but not an hour richer, a time for balancing your books and having every item of the album around a dozen months presented dead against you? I could work my will. Every idiot that goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should.
Uncle.
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it, but you don't keep it.
Let me leave it alone then. Much good may it do for you, much good has it ever done for you.
There are many things from
Which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited, I dare say, Christmas among the rest. But I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time, when it has come round, apart from the veneration due to its sacred name and origin, if anything belonging to it can be apart from that, as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem one by one consent to open their shut up hearts freely and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave and not another race of creatures bound on another journeys. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good and will do me good. And I say, God bless it.
You're quite a powerful speaker, sir. I wonder why you don't go for Parliament.
Don't be angry, Uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow.
I'll see you in hell first.
But why? Why?
Why did you get married?
Because I fell in love.
Because you fell in
Love. Good afternoon.
Nay, Uncle, but you never came to see me before that happened. Why give it as a reason for not coming now?
Good afternoon.
I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends?
Good afternoon.
I am sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We have never had any quarrel to which I have been a party, but I have made the trial an homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
It's hard to believe, at least hard for me to believe, but according to accounts in old newspapers, 200 years ago, Christmas was celebrated with loud explosions, much the way we celebrate New Year's today. The practice of excessive drinking of alcoholic beverages at Christmas was also popular. One 1833 news story described Christmas Eve in Philadelphia as, quote, young men wandering in packs, drinking in taverns, and fighting on the streets. Gradually, 19th century English-speaking peoples recast Christmas. A central scripture in this new Christmas was a poem first published by the Troy, New York Sentinel on December 23, 1823. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. Now eventually, 'twas the night before Christmas appeared each year at Christmas in newspapers throughout our nation. Authorship was claimed by a professor at a New York City Episcopal Seminary, Clement Clark Moore. The poem is a celebration of upper-class home and family. It does not mention drinking or explosions. And there's no mention of charity. The idea of Christmas as a time for charity was created in the fall of 1843 by a 31-year-old Englishman. The inventor was anxious about his own personal finances. After great success with his novels, The Pickwick Papers in 1837 and Oliver Twist, published as a series and from 1837 to 1839, the public seemed to lose interest in Dickens' writing. He needed to write a story that would sell. His wife was pregnant with their 5th child, and the due date for the birth of the baby was just after Christmas. Dickens searched in his personal experiences for a story he could write. Since his childhood, money had always been a central concern in his life. Memories of visiting his father in a debtor's prison when he was 12 haunted him. As an adult, the poverty he saw deeply upset him, particularly the desperate condition of children in the London slums. In London in the 1840s, it's reported that over 20,000 children died each year from hunger, exposure, or preventable illnesses. Traditional religion disgusted Charles Dickens. He watched clergy engage in intellectual debates about the Bible as children were dying of disease and malnutrition. Dickens said, "I cannot sit under a clergyman who addresses his congregation as though he had taken a return ticket to heaven and back." He detested the practice of teaching poor children to memorize parts of the Bible by rote, and he was delighted with the story of a child who came out with, "Our Savior was the only forgotten Son of the Father." Repelled by conventional preaching, in the fall of 1843, Charles Dickens started attending the Little Portland Street Unitarian Chapel in London. He wrote a friend, "Disgusted with our established church and its daily outrages on common sense and humanity, I have carried in effect an old idea of mine and joined the Unitarians." He appreciated the Unitarians' non-dogmatic, rational, humanitarian approach. He felt that religion should be less concerned with trying to explain confusing doctrines like the Trinity and more concerned with practical, ethical issues of people. He described Unitarianism as the religion that has sympathy for men of every creed and ventures to pass judgment on none. From these experiences, his family's need for money, his personal history as a poor child growing up in London, and the teachings about social and moral obligations that he heard at the Unitarian Chapel, the idea for a story began to form in his mind. In October of 1843, Charles Dickens began to write the story that he was to call A Christmas Carol in prose, being a ghost story of Christmas. Dickens told a friend that he wept, he laughed, and then he cried again as the narrative grew in his hands. During its composition, he took long night walks through London, sometimes covering 10 or 15 miles. On these lonely excursions, he remembered the world he had experienced in those same streets when he was a child. Elements of this childhood appeared in the story. The fictional Cratchit family lived in a small house that was like the house where the Dickens family had lived in London when Charles was a child. Charles had a younger brother called Tiny Fred, who appears in the fictional story as Tiny Tim. However, Dickens is not just the child in the Cratchit family. To some degree, he is also Ebenezer Scrooge. Throughout Dickens' life, money held power over him. On the one hand, coming out of a poor childhood, he had a deep fear of poverty. This fear motivated him to earn as much money as possible. Like many persons who have made their own way in the world and have come from poverty, Dickens was very cautious in matters of finance. He made sure that his wife was careful about the domestic budget, and she left him in 1858, by the way. He made sure that his wife was careful about the domestic budget, and he avoided unnecessary expenditures when it was possible to do so. Even in later years, when he was successful as a writer, there was always a fear of ruin or poverty beneath the surface of his life. On the other hand, Dickens also was at times a generous man. Throughout his life, there were examples of his charity and kindness to those who needed it. Children whose education he paid for, men and women whose fate so touched him that he sent them money in secret, and prisoners whose plight led him to send money to the prison officials for them. In A Christmas Carol, Dickens imagined what he once was and what he might become. The story contains his central concerns: the lack of food, clothing, shelter, schools, and medical care for children; the dangers of the Industrial Revolution, including young children working in factories; the value of home and family; the vision that we are all part of a large extended family; and the fear that as he grew older, he might become like Scrooge. All these things came together as he wrote. He finished the book at the beginning of December 1843. It had taken him 6 weeks to compose the story. Ebenezer Scrooge is haunted on Christmas Eve in the story. As Scrooge eats his evening meal, the ghost of his dead partner, Jacob Marley, appears before him. The Marley ghost explains that for his sins of greed, Marley is condemned to wander in purgatory for eternity. Then the Marley ghost explains that 3 other ghosts will visit Scrooge that night: the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. At 1 a.m., the ghost of Christmas past appears. First, the ghost takes Scrooge to his childhood school, where he's sitting alone, to remind him that the young Ebenezer had no friends. Next, the ghost takes him to a memory of his one and only sweetheart, as she breaks off their engagement because she says all he loves is accumulating money. The tour of Christmas Past ends with a glimpse of his former fiancée, who has married someone else, now married, with children. She's enjoying Christmas Eve, and a happy husband arrives home to let her know that as he was walking home, he had passed her old friend Scrooge, and that he was alone and pitiful. Well, Scrooge falls asleep, to be awakened by the second ghost, the ghost of Christmas Present. This ghost takes Scrooge to visit the home of Scrooge's clerk, Bob Cratchit, where a poor but grateful family, including the disabled Tiny Tim and his several siblings, are enjoying a modest Christmas meal. Scrooge observes the affection that passes between Cratchit and his afflicted son, and Scrooge even asks the ghost, "Will Tiny Tim live?" Next, the ghost of Christmas Present takes Scrooge to see the joyful dinner party of Scrooge's nephew, played by a niece today. Scrooge had been invited to this dinner. He hears his nephew say it is a shame that his uncle cannot appreciate the spirit of the holidays. Then the third and final ghost appears, the ghost of Christmas yet to come. This hooded ghost takes Scrooge to a cemetery to see his own tombstone and to hear that no one is sad that Scrooge has died. Next, the ghost takes Scrooge to the Cratchit home, where Bob Cratchit has just returned from visiting Tiny Tim's grave. The entire family is in tears. Scrooge wakes up, transformed by all this. He sends a big turkey to the Cratchit house. He gives to charity, and he goes to his nephew's house for dinner. When the book appeared on December 17th, the response of the public was enthusiastic. At a low price of 5 shillings, A Christmas Carol became the most successful Christmas book of the season. The public bought 6,000 copies by Christmas Eve, and the book kept on selling well into the next year and beyond. Rooted in his Unitarian beliefs, Dickens had written an entertaining moral message. Over time, the story began to determine what we now expect at Christmas. Today, we think not of excessive drinking and fireworks, but of home, families, and charity. Before Dickens, Christmas was a holiday where adults might give simple presents to children, but there was no general interest in benevolence or generosity. Christmas was not a day of charity or compassion. Dickens transformed the holiday among English-speaking people. He also helped make Christmas comfortable and cozy. In A Christmas Carol, there are these contrasts between warmth and cold, between quiet homes and noisy streets, between the rich and the poor, between health and illness, between comfort and hopelessness. So at night, I enjoy the Christmas lights more because in my imagination, in the darkness, Dickens' ghosts are out there. He hoped to earn about 1,000 English pounds from the sale of the book. However, his publishers would not fund the project. So Dickens essentially self-published the book. The cost of production cut heavily into the profits. He made only £130 at the beginning. Financial success from the story came 10 years later, in 1853, when Dickens began to give public readings of A Christmas Carol. So people would pay to come to a hall, and he would sit without a microphone and speak loudly to them and read the entire story. The first time it took 3 hours. Later, he judiciously made cuts to shorten the tale. Although he did public readings from many of his books, A Christmas Carol always remained his favorite. Before Dickens would begin to read the story, he would announce that he would treat the audience as if they had gathered around a Christmas fire. He encouraged the listeners to laugh or cry or cheer. He would say, if you are feeling disposed as we go along to give expression to any emotion, whether grave or gay, you will do so with perfect freedom from restraint and without apprehension of disturbing me. He stood at a reading desk in front of the audience. With no props, he gave a performance, impersonating the 23 voices and actions in the story as he read. The readings were so popular that the lecture halls would fill hours before the lecture, and the ushers would turn away thousands. On March 15, 1870, in failing health, Charles Dickens gave his last performance. One final time he read A Christmas Carol. When he finished, the applause and the cheering lasted for several minutes. He died of a stroke 11 weeks later at the age of 58. But of course, through his story, he's still alive. Many have retold the story. There are hundreds of versions of A Christmas Carol. In the movies, Lionel Barrymore, Laurence Olivier, Ronald Colman, George C. Scott, Michael Caine, Patrick Stewart, Christopher Plummer, Jim Carey, Kelsey Grammer, Henry Winkler, and Bill Murray, and Scrooge McDuck have all immortalized the story. So next time you read the story or see it acted out in a movie or in a play, I hope you will think for a moment of 31-year-old Charles Dickens and remember that he was writing the story as he was also attending the Sunday services of Portland Street Unitarian Chapel in London. Although we are a small denomination, we have had a great influence on the values of our culture. It is one of the reasons I am proud to be a Unitarian. Let's stand and sing our closing hymn, number 226, People Look East.
The time is near of the crowning of the year. Make us as near as you are able. Come in the tithe and set the table. People look east and sing today. Lo, the guest is on the way. Girls, be glad the earth is bare. One more seed is planted there. Give up your strength, the seed to nourish, that in course the flower may flourish. People look east and love the rose. Love the rose is on the way. Stars keep the watch when earth is dim. One more light the bowl shall brim, shining beyond the frosty weather, bright as the sun and moon together. People look east and west today. Love, the star is on the way.
The last lines of the story. Let us honor Christmas in our hearts and keep it all the year. God bless us, everyone. Let's say together our closing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.